for attending and for whoever's watching, all two of you, we really appreciate that. But tonight is a very special night. My name is Scotty Carlisle.
Jake Itamura.
Jeff Frazier.
And today we're going to be going over biohacking. I've actually got the pleasure of listening to this presentation, so there's a lot of good stuff. So anybody that wants to know stuff about health, he's done a lot of deep dives, and we're all going to benefit from this. So, but before we get into you, Jeff, we have a couple of things that we want to mention because what we're trying to do is grow trajectory, and we have some different things that I think would be of value to different people. So if you want to talk about that.
Yeah. So for some of you OG trajectory people that have been around this group for a long time, probably heard of these. We try to implement them in the meetings, but I think it's going to be better if we do it a little outside. So basically, we're having mastermind groups outside of the trajectory meetings. Starting is just going to be Zoom meetings, but there's going to be 3 different ones. So 3 different mastermind groups. The first one is the Passive Income Alliance that I know some of you heard about. So Pam, can you give them the papers? Yeah. So you can read about it. I won't go super into detail, but basically it's a group we focus on building passive income streams. The second is Break the Locks. So some of you know that I have a coaching program that I do that in group coaching format that is called Break the Locks, and it's really meant for you to figure out your purpose and get in line with it so you can live your best life. So you can read more about that. And the third one is we're calling it the Mentor Makerspace Mastermind. It's about personal brand. So personal brand is really big right now and really important, especially if you have a business or if you're trying to grow an audience. But it's all focused on social media growth, getting onto podcasts, just growing your own brand and building a following. That's what it's all about. And all 3 of these, the reason for the mastermind is to be able to keep each other accountable. So it's actionable things that we can do together as a group. And you guys could check it out for free. So if you have the paper, just mark which ones you're interested in, fill out the info, and on the bottom, just since we haven't really scheduled exactly when we're going to do it, let us know the best time and the best day of the week that you'd be able to attend a meeting, like probably hour max on Zoom. And we'll try to schedule the one that fits the best for everyone. But the intention is that we're going to do all 3 of these every single week. So that's going to start right away as soon as we let everybody know.
Yeah, one of the cool things about trajectory is that I don't think you're ever going to go into another room where you have such a diverse crowd. Like there's a bunch of people from so many different backgrounds, whether it's business, whether it's what they're doing as far as hobbies and everything else. So sometimes when we're doing a specific event on a certain people gravitate towards it, other people don't. So the idea of breaking out, like some people are interested in passive income, other people don't really care about that. They're more about personal brand. So the idea is to try to separate and basically give the resources to whatever it is that they want. Anything else?
That's it. I mean, I think it'll be pretty cool. We'll keep on mentioning this to everybody to grow each group. It'll probably be small to begin with, but yeah, we hope you check it out.
Just out of show of hands, for curiosity's sake, is there who in here would be interested in passive income, in the passive income thing? Just as an interest, not because we're trying to, I'm just curious. Okay, a few people. What about, so Break the Locks, doing personal development. Who's into personal development? Okay. And then what about personal brand? So trying to create an audience and, okay. All right. Some people aren't trying to do anything. What the hell's wrong with you guys? No, I'm just kidding. So anyway, I guess our next step is to introduce Mr. Jeff. And again, I don't know who I've told, but I've seen this presentation. We're in the Rotary Club, and I had no idea that he was such I'm going to call you an expert. You don't have to, but he's done a deep dive, and I thought I knew about nutrition and stuff, but when he did the presentation, I was like, oh, dang, I didn't know about that. Oh, dang, I didn't know about that. And I said that like 12 times. So that being said, Jeff, could you tell us why you started doing this?
Yeah, I'd be happy to, and thank you for having me. Appreciate it. The reality is, it's become a hobby of mine to learn about health and wellness and biohacking and all of it. It's what I do every single morning as I read. And it's been very fulfilling, and I love it, but it seems that the people at Sam's Club and at the gas station really don't want to hear it from me. So I actually appreciate the ability to talk about it. You have to kind of cross your T's and dot your I's and make sure you've done your homework. So I'll just give a little background on myself. I built this tech company with a partner over 20 years and sold that about a year ago. And so I'm sort of retired. But my journey in this has really began because of back injury. I had a back injury, and I was on Vicodin and painkillers, and this went on from my late 20s all the way into my early 40s. And I was starting to get really fearful of what my future was going to be like. I mean, I couldn't even hold my small children. I couldn't go, my wife, we'd want to go as a family to Disneyland or something. I'd have to stay home with my back brace on, And so I started to feel like what is this going to be like in 10 years for me? And it's not what I envisioned. And so I started seeking out surgeons, what a surgical remedy would be. And I talked to the best reputed surgeons in Orange County. One after the other told me the same thing. I was not eligible, I was not a good candidate, is what they said. They said the type of problem I had didn't have a high success rate. And I had a background of working in a hospital while I was going to school for physical therapy. And I saw a lot of back surgeries not go well. And I said, okay, well, 50-50 those are pretty crappy odds. So I don't want to do that. And I said, but what am I going to do? I can't just stay on drugs and keep deteriorating. And so long story short, I ended up in physical therapy. I said, I will be the best student you've ever had. You tell me what I need to do, I'm going to do it. And they put me on an exercise regimen. And I was probably about 240 pounds, not in good shape. And I just did the exercise. It's all about core strengthening and stretching. And I did that. And after several weeks, I started to improve. And it just sort of became a necessary part of my, daily regimen. Because if I didn't do it, I would get the back pain again. It would come on pretty quickly. And I mean, it was bad. My back would just slide to the side and I'd look like a freak. And so I just accepted that that's my new life. I exercise and I'm going to have to do that. Well, that made me realize a lot of things. I felt better. In so many aspects of my life, I was just better. I had a better outlook. I had better energy. And so I became really interested in how do I further that along? How do I become, really, what else can I do, right? I'm getting older. I'm 55 now. And I would like to be, healthy and have a long health span, not just a lifespan, right? And so that really led me to start listening to podcasts and different things. And so when we talk about biohacking, we introduced the concept of biohacking. It comes from a term that was coined by a man named Dave Asprey. And anybody heard of Dave Asprey?
Okay. Of course, the health guy.
Of course, the health guy. Okay, because Dave Asprey's story is really compelling. He was a brilliant software engineer. He ended up having a problem with mycotoxins, which come from mold. And nobody was diagnosing him properly. And it was very difficult. None of the treatments were working. You hear the same things from people that have had some kind of mold poisoning or Lyme disease. They're both really tricky, and they present with symptoms that would be associated with all sorts of other diseases. And so the treatments are often unreliable and don't work. Well, he sought out, started doing his own research, and ultimately he became pretty well known for knowing a great deal about how to do different things with your body that the doctors were they were just missing. So he coined the term biohacking. And so the definition of biohacking per the dictionary is strategic biological experimentation, especially upon oneself, using technology, drugs, hormones, diet, etc., with the goal of enhancing or augmenting performance, health, mood, or the like.
There'll be a test.
It will be a test later. So now, when you think about it, well, taking vitamin C is a biohack, right? You're affecting something by intervening. Instead of just eating regular food, you're actually deliberately taking something into your body with, an intended outcome. So it's kind of a really loose term. And so this presentation is not all about like neat tricks. A lot of it is, and you'll find if you ever explore this community or this, in the podcast world or in the print literature about biohacking, you'll find that it's interwoven with health and wellness generally, because it's about getting better sleep. It's about maximizing how to get the most out of your exercise, how to eat optimally for your body. All of that is part of this larger effort to improve your health span and have a more energetic and positive life. So in order to understand when I'm going to be talking about a lot of things you probably never heard of. And if you're at all like me, I'm a naturally rather skeptical person. And so when I hear something, whether it's on a podcast from somebody I trust or random conversations, somebody gives me some factoid, I actually have it on my phone now. I have an app for PubMed. If you don't know what PubMed is, it's the public access to published literature on studies that have been done, medical studies. So whenever I hear something, I look it up with keywords and is there evidence for this? Is this real? And so if it's not, I kind of discard it. If I'm finding a lot, oh yeah, wow, that's pretty compelling, then I'll start writing about it and I start, trying to learn more about it. What you find when you start learning about health and wellness generally and biohacks also is that you say, well, wait a minute. Why did I not learn this? Why does my doctor not tell me these things if this is true? Why is it always a prescription medicine that I'm offered instead of this or that or the other that is readily at hand and inexpensive and I could do myself? And that gets to a fundamental problem in the way that the whole medical community and the whole system is structured. And I think it's fairly well known. Most people have issues with the way the system is structured. The fundamental problem, or I should say one major problem, is that it takes about $10 to $100 million to get a new compound or drug from conception to FDA approval. That's an extraordinary amount of money. And so for that reason, the pharmaceutical companies will not pursue anything that they can't patent, which makes perfect sense. They're in the business of making money. They're not going to promote something like testosterone to solve some different problems if they can offer you something they can patent. Now, you cannot patent a naturally occurring compound. So if you can get it out of tea leaves, can't patent it. If it's naturally found in the bark of a tree, you can't patent it. We've all heard of Ozempic, right? Ozempic is not patented, but they push it. The reason is that they patented the delivery device, right? Ozempic is actually semaglutide, which is a common peptide. Well, your body makes about 300,000 different peptides. Peptides are just short chain proteins, so it's nothing exotic. It's just your body is a manufacturing machine for proteins. It's how everything gets done. But when you have all of these different compounds that your body is making, and they have been learning how to isolate these things, and they can see that we can have all this positive effect. This one does this one does this, and it's early days for it, but they can't patent them. And so they never get FDA approval. And so there's all these amazing things out there that you will never hear from the medical community. And so that is an underpinning and understanding why some of these biohacks you never heard of, and you'll never get the edification from the medical community about them. Now, you will hear, if you listen to podcasts where these guys have doctors on and they do these deep conversations about this stuff. You have many doctors who have left traditional medicine. They tend to be on the younger side because they get disillusioned. They're like, I can't do the things for my patient that I know would help them the most. They'll tell you things like, when I have tried to recommend to this patient, you have to cut out seed oils. I need you to do this and that because your inflammation is too high. The patients, they'll file complaints. They didn't help me. They didn't give me a drug. And so the doctors are between a rock and a hard place. And there's a lot of disillusionment among really good, diligent doctors. The other problem in medicine is that you have an accelerating pace of discovery. So these papers get published and the doctors are working already long hours in many cases. If they're not also using all their free time to read and to be brought up to speed on what's available out there in different remedies, they never know. And so oftentimes your doctor is stuck in a rut of 10 and 15-year-old information, and they're still prescribing the same thing, even though it's not the right thing. It's not the best thing, I should say, for what it is. That has given rise to a growing sort of biohacking, do-it-yourself type movement, right, in health. And I'm a big fan of like Dr. Mercola, if you've ever heard of him. He's all about take control of your health. You don't always have to go to the doctor. So he publishes like crazy. And I've learned a lot from him. So that's kind of the basis of all of this. So the kind of top 8 biohacking purposes, areas of focus is brain health and mental well-being is a big area. Improving sleep quality, increasing energy and performance, strengthening your immune system. That's massive. I mean, it can't be overstated. Metabolic health, avoiding and clearing toxins from your body and food, and avoiding and reversing chronic disease. And then, of course, anti-aging is big because a lot of the people in the biohacking movement, there's a lot of wealthy tech people in it, and they don't want to get old. And so they're throwing money at it, and we're learning a lot from their efforts. But when
really fast,
yeah.
Who out here, which one would be the most important to you? Like between 1 and 8? I'm just curious. I'm just checking a pulse here. No, that's not the question.
The young people like anti-aging.
Yeah, we don't need that.
Whatever. But.
You don't like a table topic.
Okay.
1 through 3, because I'm going through all of it right now.
All right. And by the way, like I tried to explain in the beginning, we're going to be all over the map here. Some of this is like biohack. Some of it you may have heard before. Some of it's going to be a little more chronic disease related. But hopefully you'll get something out of all of it. Okay, if you've ever heard of what a nootropic is a brain affecting compound. Some people think of nootropics as smart drugs, which is fair because most nootropic compounds have some positive effect on some aspect of your brain. There's cognition, your ability to understand and process information. There's memory formation. There's memory recall. These are all different things. And sometimes people will have deficits in one area or another, and there are different compounds that affect different aspects of your brain activity. There are natural nootropics. Many of them are available at CVS and at it's over the counter. Bacopa monnieri is one that if you ever heard of Ayurvedic medicine, it's Southeast Asia, ancient like Indian, like we know about like Chinese medicine, there's Indian medicine, they call Ayurvedic medicine. Bacopa monnieri is a plant that's native to Southeast Asia, and it's very common for the parents of children there to give their kids the leaves of this plant to chew on because it has such positive brain impact on them. You can buy that in capsules. It's less common than some of these others, but you can see these. I'm gonna read them all off. A lot of people don't know that nicotine is a nootropic. It doesn't mean you should smoke or chew tobacco. That's pretty bad trade-off. But nicotine is a great nootropic. If you've been paying attention to the news, you know that RFK Jr. is working on getting confirmed as HHS secretary. During his confirmation hearing, a lot of biohackers noticed he just put a nicotine patch in his mouth. You know, he was talking, he kind of
Interesting.
because it makes you a little bit sharper. It is addictive, so you can't go nuts with it. But another one is methylene blue, but that's the next slide. So okay, so those are natural ones. Then you have synthetic nootropics. Now, most people have heard of Adderall. Adderall is rough because it's great as a nootropic, but it's also habit forming, and it's a stimulant. It's a straight up stimulant. Whereas, you know, the U.S. military, you know, was a huge buyer of Adderall, especially, you know, if you're on a mission like pilots, right? The Air Force, if you're flying and you're doing a refuel or whatever, you might be in the air for 14, 18 hours. And you need to stay sharp, especially if you're in a combat mission. So they were dosing everybody with Adderall for a long time. Well, they switched it all out. They went to modafinil. This is another one I learned from Dave Asprey. But modafinil is in a class of its own. It's not a stimulant. It's called a wakeful agent. Your doctor, you probably won't be successful getting a prescription for that. I got one. And then I couldn't renew it. They cut it off, and they wouldn't renew it anymore.
Why is that?
They wouldn't cover it. It was the insurance. Yeah, but it was fantastic. It just gave me a very, and this is what everybody reports, an alertness, not jitters, nothing like that. Not like drinking coffee or Adderall, which I also took, just to see, you know, how it would work. But anyway, modafinil is a great one. C-Max was actually developed by Russian pharmaceutical company. It's primarily used for brain, you know, right after a brain injury or stroke, but it's super effective. And what it does is causes, and by the way, C-Max is a peptide that you can get through various peptide labs. You basically have to sign that you would not give it to an animal or human, but you can take it. I've taken it. And what it does is it increases the production of BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotropic factor. So it increases the number of brain neurons, neural connections. Then you have piracetam, which is the first of many in the racetam family. You can get this stuff. It's not illegal, but you just have to find somebody that sells it. But it's a good nootropic. And you know, depending on what you do for a living or what your purpose might be, you know, it could be worth checking out. Now, methylene blue is a really interesting one because this was the first synthetic drug ever approved by the U.S. government for human consumption. And it was actually developed and was used as the original dye for blue jeans. It is an intensely blue substance that will stain anything it touches. And they sell it in a pharmaceutical grade dropper. You can buy it on Amazon. And it's got some amazing properties that it would be difficult for me to fully explain, but it's both an electron donor and scavenger. And so in the mitochondria, which is what produces your energy, your ATP, there's an electron transport chain that gets interrupted if it's not got the right balance. And methylene blue supplies that right balance, whether it's in excess or in deficit. So it's a fascinating one, and it's also a good nootropic. It's also one that RFK Jr. was spotted putting in his drink on an airplane ride recently, which was funny. Okay. Mental well-being. This is a huge area. I practice journaling. I recently started, maybe 2 years ago doing it. And I started, on the recommendation of one of the big biohacking guys out there, Ben Greenfield, was talking a lot about the impact on kind of mental wellness that expression of gratitude and documenting gratitude has on you. And I find it really, really helpful for me. So it's one of the things I do in the morning is I write down what I'm grateful for. It gets
Can I interject something?
yeah, of course.
So I want just for an exercise, everybody think of something that they're grateful for. Just take a second and just think of something just as an interruption because ADHD takes over. But honestly, think about it because I it's an important thing. Alfonso, what are you grateful for? Marissa?
All right. Sorry, I talk a mile a minute. So
No.
Just jump in anytime. But these are things that can change your mood and put you in a more positive space, especially when you deal with anxiety. I began doing this because my business was not doing well, and everything was riding on my business. Everything was. The anxiety and the stress when we were in, having a difficult time was really challenging for me. So I started doing that. I found it very helpful. I have never been into meditation, but it is one common thread among all of these biohacks. Everyone talks about meditating and how important that is for them. Now, breath work is a really interesting one. There's a lot of these things that just don't sound like, it's nothing you can grab onto, it's like, I'm somebody, I like to lift weights and, you can pick it up and you move it and you feel sore afterwards and you did something. And meditation is like, what am I doing here, right? But at some point, I know I'm going to get into it because there's a lot of data on it and the benefits of it. Breath work is really interesting. Has anybody heard of box breathing before? Anybody that's been in the military would probably know box breathing. Box breathing is very simple. If you picture a box, you say, you can do different intervals, but let's say you did 4 seconds. You say, I'm going to do a 4-second inhale, hold for 4 seconds, 4-second exhale, hold for 4 seconds. And when you do that, it's amazing how focusing yourself on that breathing pattern calms you down. It's very calming. And so it's one of the things when we talk about sleep, it's one of the things you can do before you go to sleep to help calm your mind. There's nothing worse than wanting to go to sleep and you have mind racing. That is the worst, right? You're thinking about all these terrible things or fears or whatever, and that's no good. But all of these practices have data behind them that show that they really help people in a qualitative way. So when it comes to sleep quality, there's a number of things to it. One of the things, it sounds really crazy. At least it sounded crazy to me until I started digging into it. And it's grounding, or some people call it earthing. And it is being in contact with the ground. Now, I sit at my desk when I'm working, and I have a ground wire that plugs in. They sell them. You've got you got 2 vertical slots, and you got that other hole. That hole is the ground wire. It literally goes down the building. It's isolated from everything, and it goes right into the ground. And the ground is like I'll probably get it wrong. It's like 2 hertz or something negative to everything else. And so what it does is when you're grounded, you are discharging positive ions. What's interesting about it is inflammation in and of itself is generating positive ions. And so it's in use, out of this context, it's in use in like some of the universities and sports medicine centers, for the athletes. They use grounding to assist in injury healing because it dilates the blood vessels and increases the blood flow to the area. we all know, right? We've all been shocked when the air's dry, maybe it's summertime, maybe it's winter. You're wearing socks, you had carpet, you walk over and you get an inch long arc when you reach for the door or something. And you're like, bang, how does that happen? It's because your polarity, you're carrying more positive ions and you're discharging them against something that is grounded. And so carrying the positive ions is bad. You don't want that. You want to be neutral. Yes. It means you've got more positive ions than they do. That's what that means.
I would every day I went to the beach and I dig my feet really deep into the sand and I'm like, whatever's not good in me, cast it as far out to the sea, and whatever's good in me, just keep me grounded. Every single day I did that and I could just feel like this transformation. So it's weird that you said that. That's all.
Yeah. It's a real thing. And there's plenty of literature out there about it, but one of the things that it can help you do is fall asleep faster, and help you sleep better. I feel like there was something else I was going to say about it, but that's okay. I think it comes up one more time. The other thing is before sleep, meditating, thinking about positive things, thinking about gratitude, doing breath work, stretching before you go to bed, releases endorphins, helps you chill out. Also, if you have Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, there are a number of different, I don't know if it's called rhythms or what to call it, but there's one called binaural beats. There's pink noise, there's white noise, and other low frequencies that can really affect your brain activity if you just relax, and it can just totally put you to sleep like a baby. So
What about white noise? Like some people say white noise helps them sleep.
I like white noise mainly as a cover for other sound. Like I have a golden doodle that can't stop licking himself. And
So you just hear.
he sleeps on my wife's side, and I swear it's the most annoying thing ever. So I'm like, turn the fan on, and that it's great, But they're apparently more effective ones than white noise. And pink noise is supposed to be one of the best.
Got it.
Okay. Avoiding blue light, right? Our phones, I think just about every model of phone now has this because we know that blue light is not good for your eyes. It's not good to be exposed to, especially late. And a lot of us are on our phones late. And we have this kind of lighting, which is blue light. Okay. So we're getting a lot of blue light. Well, you have something called the circadian rhythm, and it deals with it speaks to the patterns of your physiology. So when you have the blue light prevents the triggering of melatonin to be produced. And so if you're on your phone and you don't have the blue light filter on, okay, because you can usually program it. You can say, I want the blue filter after a certain time. It makes it more difficult for you to sleep. And so because your circadian rhythm thinks it's still daylight. Okay. And so the recommendation on this is, number one, reduce the amount of blue light in your home after hours. When the sun goes down, don't have bright white lights. You can switch them out for red lights, or you can wear blue light blocking glasses. And so that's one of the ways, especially if you have a problem sleeping. Sleep is super important. Also, I've got a picture of the Aura ring up here. So this, I know we've got somebody wearing one over here. We were just talking about. It is really an amazing technology. This little ring, comes with an app on your phone, and it tracks your sleep pattern throughout the night. And it's great to have that feedback mechanism. You can say, well, what did I do? So yeah, I ate late, and so I didn't quite get the delta sleep that I was after, or the deep sleep. But whatever the case is, there are tools, and that's definitely, I would say, a biohack, right? It's a way to, well, there's a term among a lot of these biohackers. It's if you hack it, you track it. And that way, are you doing anything good? Or are you wasting your time? You wasting your money, right? So,
That's pretty cool. It'll last you. Looks like you didn't sleep well last night. What did you change? What did you do different from the day before? And it starts laying it all up.
it's very cool.
That's the Aura Ring.
Aura Ring. Yeah. I think there's some competitors out there, but Aura Ring was
I was just
kind of first. Yeah.
AU.
I think it's OURA. Yeah. It's a brand. The brand. Yeah. Yeah. But if you look up sleep ring, I'm sure you find it. Okay. When it comes to, so now creatine was always known and associated with physical performance because it allows for more explosive movement of the muscles, like faster contraction, faster heart contractions. And so it's a great thing. Anybody that's lifting weights, anybody that's doing something high demand performance related stuff, creatine is one of the no-brainer supplements to take. Red meat's got a lot of it in it. But it also, more recently in the last several years, they're finding it's also really important for people over 50 years old to be supplementing because it's also really important to brain health and brain cognition. It lowers homocysteine levels, so it's better to help prevent heart disease, reduces bone loss. So, creatine is a no-brainer. You just want to make sure that if you're buying creatine, that you get one that's micronized. I don't know if anybody's doing it that's not micronized anymore, but you want micronized because otherwise it doesn't absorb well. Urolithin A is a very recently discovered supplement or compound for supplementation. And let me take a step back here. There is a realization that's happening when it comes to, and I think Dave Asprey actually gets a ton of credit for this. He became very focused on mitochondrial health. Okay, mitochondria, if we remember from biology class, that's the powerhouse of the cell. This is the one that makes the adenosine triphosphate. This is the ATP, the energy currency of your body. Every single cell in your body has one of these or more. If you are active and you do, let's say you're a runner, the cells and the muscles in your legs are probably going to have many more than one in each cell. So they're very dynamic and everything depends on that production of energy. When you don't have adequate energy production, something's not working right. Something's not working right. And the way that manifests itself or reveals itself could be any number of different ways. It could be in poor immune performance. It could be in a whole bunch of different things. So there's a term that I heard just in the last year. I heard a doctor specifically saying that, I believe in the bioenergetic model. And it's this new sort of theory about health and wellness about that the mitochondria is got to be the focus of everything. It first and foremost has to be. Well, urolithin A, as it turns out, is a really interesting compound because it stimulates both mitophagy, which is the targeting of mitochondria for being eaten, okay, by like the macrophages. So if they're not performing well, they get targeted and eaten. And then mitoneogenesis, which is the creation of new or additional mitochondria. So it's a pretty good one. If mitochondria are important, you want more of them and you want them to be healthy. So urolithin A stimulates that. And it turns out, we've all heard of microbiome. This is the population of bacteria you've got in your gut. Well, it turns out it's a byproduct. It's literally the waste product of some of the like lactobacillus and one of the other major strains of common bacteria in your stomach. So, but you can now buy this as a supplement and you can actually take it and improve that. Now, you do get from just healthy eating and exercise, you should be just fine with that, because both of those things contribute to a good gut bacteria, healthy population, and healthy mitochondria. Another thing, we talked about earlier, is hormones and peptides. As we get older, all the good stuff just starts to drop.
It's not cool, man.
It's not good. There's a lot of things that just start to drop. It's sort of like your body goes, okay, we got you to the full grown mode, and now we're just going to start tapering off all the stuff that makes you feel great. So, testosterone is a very common one. TRT, or testosterone replacement therapy, is very commonplace now. Most people know about it. Sermorelin, lesser known. It is a peptide that is common and FDA approved, which is rare among the peptides. There aren't that many peptides that are FDA approved. Sermorelin stimulates your pituitary to make more growth hormone. So you don't have to take growth hormone, which is really expensive. You can take Sermorelin, and your body will make the more growth hormone for you. And there's a lot of benefits to it that are similar to testosterone.
You had a question?
Your doctor can get you a prescription of it. Yeah. I mean, you could go gray market, you could buy it, but from a lab, but it's best to get it, pharmaceutical grade. Okay, on the subject of peptides, I mentioned your body makes over 300,000 of these things. There are very few of them that have actually made it through the FDA approval for the reasons I told you. Nobody's going to put up that kind of money for the testing. BPC 157 is an incredible peptide. It's probably top 2 best known among athletes, among biohackers in general. And it's because it was discovered in the gastric juices that are just naturally there. And it's in higher concentrations when you have an ulcer. So when you have an injury to your gut, they find this compound in there. And, they named it body protective compound. It's got this, sexy name, BPC 157, which is not uncommon among peptides. They just kind of slap a scientific expression on it. But what's amazing about it is that the testing history of this stuff was they found that it tested that no matter what tissue was damaged, they could put this stuff on it and it would accelerate the healing. And then they found that for bone injuries, tendons, and ligaments, none of these things really have their own blood supply. And so the healing of them is slow. If you've ever had tennis elbow or golfer's elbow, or you've strained your Achilles tendon, these things take forever. To any kind of a tendonitis, it just seems like it takes forever to heal. This stuff is like a miracle worker. I have used it many times. I hurt myself all the time in the gym. I hurt my shoulder all the time, and I use it, and it is just it's incredible. And you'll find that I've heard it talked about over and over again on Joe Rogan's podcast with different athletes, MMA guys, and all this stuff. Everybody does want BPC 157. It's pretty incredible. Oh, and it's an amazing anti-inflammatory too. So that's a good one. Yes.
The picture with the stripe, what's that lab that creates that peptide?
That's Peptide Sciences in Irvine.
Yeah, I've been looking into it personally, and
Yeah.
I lost it. Figure out the name. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, that's what I had looked up because I had been researching peptides.
Yeah, for all the labs out there that are doing it, the compounding pharmacies even that are doing it, I like that one because they publish all their tests. They publish I forget what it's, COI, certificate of whatever, but it talks about the purity. It's independent lab test purity of everything. They publish it all right there. Yeah. Yeah. Now the other one, this BioWell, that's from the UK, and that's a capsule. And I bought that stuff, and I have to this day. I have one that's got other peptides in it now, but BPC 157, I keep it because I went through a period with diverticulitis, and it's nasty. And so when I start feeling any kind of weird pain in there, I'm taking it and it goes away. So, but yeah, that one, I haven't found oral in the United States that had, at least that had that looked reputable. Okay. So the immune system, I'm not, I'm not going to get into a lot of depth on all the different aspects of your immune system. I put this slide together mainly to convey the complexity of the immune system, and this is scratching the surface. This is nothing. The immune system, when we talk about, this is good for your immune system, that's good for your immune system. Your immune system is a vast, it's like a 1,000-person orchestra. Okay, there are a million things going on that are immune related. Everything from your skin, your tear ducts, your mucous membranes, these are part of your immune system. And then you have killer T cells, and you've got, lymphocytes, and you've got all these different things that all play a role, and they do different things in concert sometimes, and sometimes by themselves. But the one common thing that makes them all work or not work so well is vitamin D. And this is absolutely critical. And we have the Western world, but the United States in particular, the vast majority of people are low in vitamin D. And it means you're more susceptible to getting sick from everything. And it means that you heal more slowly than you should, because vitamin D underpins all of it. There was I won't get, I don't want to say something I'm not certain of, but because I don't remember the exact number, but I remember during COVID, toward the tail end of it, a study had been done on the vitamin D levels of people who died with COVID. And it was the dominant majority of them had very low vitamin D. So it's absolutely critical. And so when we think about vitamin D, you can't tell if you're low in vitamin D unless you get blood work done, unfortunately. But what you can do is make sure that you're doing the things that help you stay high in vitamin D. The number one is get exposed to the sun. We've been like brainwashed to say that the sun is bad for you. I'm going to talk about when the sun is bad for you in a few slides, but the sun, just from getting sunlight, about 30 minutes, you'll produce about 10,000 international units of vitamin D. Okay. When you go to the store and you buy vitamin D, those little capsules, typically they're 5,000 IU. It's like taking 2 of those from a half hour. So vitamin D is far and away, or I should say sunlight is far and away the best way to get vitamin D. Ultraviolet B also stimulates it. And you can get that from a tanning bed. So if you like to tan, you're getting your vitamin D too. They also make red light panels that have lots of benefits, and they started to incorporate UVB as an option in some of those as well. If you're supplementing vitamin D, which I do, and is probably recommended for most people, because quite frankly, this is the environment we're spending most of our time in. Our kids are gaming, they're indoors, they're not out doing sports as much as past generations. We go from our home to our car to our office, and we're not getting enough vitamin D. So, or sun exposure to produce vitamin D. So if you're going to take vitamin D, it's much better to take it with K2, vitamin K2 and magnesium, and ideally with a fatty meal. And that maximizes the absorption, how much you're going to take in. Otherwise, a lot of vitamins, you take them, you notice, hey, my pee's yellow. Great. That's
You beat it all out.
a lot of it just doesn't absorb. So you want to do things to maximize the absorption of that.
Is that specifically for D3, that combination, or is that for any kind
It
of
is for this one. K2 is specific to D3. And magnesium is important in its own right, but yeah.
I don't want to get ahead of you about sunlight. Something that I used to do. When it gets cold, I don't do it, but I've read that as soon as the sun breaks, like you want to be out,
Yeah.
like at basically the break of dawn, that sunlight, as it enters your body, it's like the most amount of actual IU that you can get at any given point of the day, and it actually seems to accelerate your energy. is that maybe something you're, I didn't want to get ahead of you, but I wanted to bring it up because you're on the vitamin D part right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, so I am partially aware of what you're talking about, but I didn't associate it with vitamin D, and I'm searching for what it was, but it was get it into your eyes.
Yeah.
So
Right, you like pretty much look
as the sun's coming up, and not staring at the sun, but getting that early daylight. Apparently, I just don't remember what it was. That's been, yeah, yeah. Okay, so another thing about the immune system, a fairly simple hack, if you will, is bovine colostrum or colostrum from cows. Now, colostrum is a mammal's first milk. So mammal gives birth, that first amount of milk that's produced, this is true for all mammals, humans included, that first milk that comes out is like a super vitamin pack. It's got all the antibodies, it's got everything, and it makes sense, right? You need that small, vulnerable animal to get its immune system up to speed. It's out in the real world now. So it is just loaded with good stuff. And you can buy it. It is not cheap. It's like $100 for 16 ounces of this powder, but you don't have to take a lot. What my family does is we take it, it's a scoop. It tastes, basically put it in water, it tastes like milk. But you take a scoop and do a scoop or two a day and do it for a week and don't do it again for a few months. We always do it as we lead up into the winter months. But I will tell you, I have three boys. My oldest boy, for some reason, had a terrible immune system. His brothers didn't have the issue. Anytime there was something going around, he got it every time, and it knocked him out. It was like we'd get a cold, and he's laid up and miserable. And so I went to the doctor. I said, is there some way, I started researching, is there a way to boost your immune system? And all kinds of claims, but I couldn't find anything to actually back it up. And colostrum was one of them. And I said, is there any way to actually boost your immune system? The doctor says, well, you can do IVIG, which is intravenous immunoglobulin. And I'm like, well, what about colostrum? Or you could do colostrum. I said, so that's legit. Oh, it's legit. I said, okay. Started doing it. I swear, it completely changed him. He didn't get sick anymore. So it is, so I like to do it a few times a year. And you can get that stuff on Amazon, but you want grass-fed. You don't want industrial cow milk. You just, there's green tea extract, this stuff, the EGCG, I won't even attempt to say what that is, but that's a good one for aspects of your immune system. Another one that I find super interesting, but it's super nerdy. You probably won't care, but beta glucans, fungal beta glucans have just, when you read the literature, it's so interesting why it works. It comes from the cell lining of from fungi. And basically what happens is your body goes, don't like that. And you get the macrophages come in and encapsulate it, right? And try to break it down, but it can't break it down. It can barely break it down at all. And so it releases it and other aspects of the immune system take over, but it creates this little cascade of immune activity. And when you have a lot of macrophages or neutrophils and monocytes and all these things floating around to do a job, they don't just curl up and die when they're done with that. They move on and they look. And so you're creating a positive impact. It's a concept called hormesis, where you insult your body with something, but the reaction to that insult is a greater benefit than the insult was. So then you have, and this was big during COVID. This was a big one. There were several doctors really pushing this, saying, hey, get your zinc level up and take it with quercetin. Quercetin is an ionophore, and what it does is the cell linings, they have these biphosphate layers, and it's designed to allow certain things in and certain things out, but not everything can just come and go. So this goes to absorption, right? So quercetin helps basically bind with the zinc and shuttle it into the cell. when you have a good zinc content in your cells, a virus can't replicate. And so even if it can replicate a little, it's like you're still giving yourself a huge leg up, giving the rest of your immune system a chance to take it out. And so that's a big one. So cold flu season comes around, I'd make sure take zinc and quercetin together. All right, we're not going to get to a lot of stuff. Okay.
No, we'll get through it.
Okay. All right.
We're gonna go over.
This is where I have to say again, I am not a doctor. I learned about this from Dr. Mercola, and I practice it whenever I start feeling sick. If I start feeling like congested in my lungs or I start feeling something in my throat, I do this. It's a specific recipe with saline and hydrogen peroxide, and you nebulize it. And this is what's amazing. This is what I love about this whole movement is that I don't have to go to a doctor. I don't have to buy a drug. I don't have to do anything. I just make my saline with salt, water, and hydrogen peroxide. I have my $40 nebulizer, and I do a couple of breathing treatments. Breathe in through my nose into my lungs, and it's maybe 8-10 hours, and I'm good. It doesn't get no progression. Okay, so this one's fun, sort of. I never know what anybody will care about or if it's just nerds only. But, there's a distinction between willpower and discipline, right? And there's willpower is like, there's a piece of cake and you're like, oh, should I maybe just a bite? Oh, no, I won't. But it takes that impulse. It's in the moment. I'm saying no to something. Whereas discipline is a framework that you operate within, that you say, this is not what I do. I don't eat cake. I get up in the morning and I stretch and exercise. I do this. And so you operate within a framework and you take the decision-making out of it, right? If you ever listen to Tony Robbins, right? Tony Robbins talked about you make the decision. You don't bargain with yourself. Once you make a decision, the Latin for deci is to cut away from, decide. I'm cutting away the other options. This is what I'm doing. And I'm a big fan of Tony Robbins. But so this is just kind of a fun fact. You have a part of your brain called the mid-cingulate cortex. And that is basically what they call the center of willpower. It's where willpower comes from. Now, what you find is this is very well developed and robust in like athletes. And it's very small and weak in people that are obese. And the reason is, and then what they've learned from studies, and some of the studies just came out about this, which is why I decided to add it. It's about doing hard things. When you want to do something, or I should say you don't want to do something, but you make yourself do it, like exercise, okay? Or cold plunge is like my favorite example because it's always, if you like the cold plunge or if you don't like the cold plunge, it's no matter what, you still hesitate and you're like, and you get in there and it's hard. Well, you're building that, okay? You're building, your brain's literally stimulated to strengthen that area. And then willpower gets stronger as a result. So just by doing the things you don't want to do, you become stronger in your ability to say no to things that you know you shouldn't do. So, okay. Has anybody heard the term autophagy before? Anybody practice fasting at all? Okay. Fasting, if I'm like you guys or like anybody else, fasting is one of the most unappealing sounding things ever. I love food. I love to eat. And I was never particularly interested in trying fasting until I did. And until I learned about just how amazing it can be for your body. If I say the expression maintenance mode, I don't know if that resonates with anybody. I came from a software background. We would block all access to our system and we claimed that we were in maintenance mode. And so that databases, there's no data changing so that they could do the work they needed to do the maintenance. Fasting, basically, once you go 16, 18 hours, your body goes into a maintenance mode. There's a whole hormonal cascade that happens. It's called AMPK for short, but it's your body goes into once your glucose levels drop, okay, and you've depleted the stored glycogen, which is just your stored sugar in your liver, then your body goes, okay, well, there's no more glucose. Let's get to work, and you kick into something called autophagy. Autophagy means self-eating. Okay, it fires up the process of consuming and discarding all of the cells and cell components that are not working properly. Your body has this extraordinary way of signaling to the immune system when something's not working right. It puts this little phosphate molecule on the surface of the cell. It's like a flag. And then your body comes in, you got your macrophages crawling around, they sniff it out, they go, okay, and they just destroy it, okay? This is so good and so important to your health, it's amazing. So if you don't allow yourself to go into this mode, you're doing yourself a huge disservice. You accelerate the aging process, you don't work optimally, and you end up with something called senescent cells, or you might hear zombie cells, okay? Cells that don't work right are dangerous to you. You don't want them around, because if you know anything about cancer, cancer is a cell replication error. It's when your cell goes to replicate and it's like made a bad copy, and now you have a mutation. And if that cell replicates, now you've got basically cancerous growth going, okay? Best way to avoid it is to fast regularly, or to have a habit of intermittent fasting, because you're putting your body, letting it do its work, the cleanup work that it needs to do and wants to do on the regular. Now, there's two huge benefits to this type of regimen. One is autophagy. The other one, we've all heard about ketogenic diets, right? You don't actually have to fast to get this benefit, but you do get the benefit if you fast for long enough. And that's ketogenesis. It's the same process. When glucose levels drop, your body starts going, okay, look, I'm used to having glucose to do everything with. You know, most cells in your body have glucose receptors. Your brain likes it. It's why kids get wired when they eat sugar, all that. When you deprive yourself of sugar for a period of time, you may hear things like keto flu, or I felt lousy. You know, it's true. Your body goes, wait a minute, what the hell? I don't have any more sugar. What am I supposed to do for energy production? Well, it does have a backup energy model, and that's ketosis. And that is breaking down fat and using the ketones, the beta hydroxybutyrate, we're technical, as the fuel. And I'll tell you one thing, your brain loves ketones more than it loves sugar. You will get clarity of mind like you've never had. If you've fasted for more than, say, 24 hours, pay attention and you will notice, man, I feel sharp. You just feel amazing. So huge benefit. If you ever want to give it a try, it is worthwhile, doing some fasting. Okay. We have a huge diabetes problem. We have a major, it's probably the biggest chronic disease that we have. And nobody tells you some of the simple things you can do. And so one of them is so simple. There is a supplement, a very inexpensive supplement called bitter melon. And there's one called berberine, which is a little pricier. But they both have a very similar effect. And when you look at the literature, the conclusion is literally as effective as a pharmaceutical at sequestering blood glucose. I won't share the anecdote, but I have a friend who was incredibly frustrated. He was not overweight. He had type 2 diabetes. It was very frustrating to him. He was pricking his finger 7 times a day. Yeah. And it was really bad. And I was like, have you ever heard of this? And I told him about it, and he, long story short, he started doing it, and he ended up having so much success with it that, he changed doctors because his doctor just told him, don't do that. And then he got all into all kinds of biohacking. And now we have a ball talking together. So, and he's probably 75. But but it's very simple. And all you have to do is just take a couple with every meal. That's all you have to do. And obviously, if you have high blood sugar, lower the things that raise your blood sugar, which is, the sugar itself, alcohol, grains, and pasta. Takes all the fun out of eating for a lot of people for a while, but it changes everything. Another thing is that we have an awful lot of poison in our food supply. I don't know if you ever heard about glyphosate or Roundup, right? It's a big problem. Nobody talks about this, and it's a big problem because I understand the economic model, why they do it, but they're spraying everything with it. And then when they don't harvest the crop or whatever's left over, they pull it together and they throw it and they feed it to the cattle. And so it's literally detectable in the animals. It's detectable if you're not eating organic, you're eating glyphosate. The more vegetation that you eat, the more likely you are carrying a load of this toxin. It's neurotoxic. They haven't proven it, but it's very likely to be carcinogenic, just because of its similarities to these other poisons. And it creates inflammation. There is a very simple way to clear your body of this poison, and it's by taking one of the essential amino acids called glycine. Glycine is it looks like table sugar, and you just throw a little thing of it, you put it in electrolytes, it tastes like nothing, it's very slightly sweet, and you just take a few scoops of this several days in a row. It's totally natural. It's found in organ meats, and your brain's got tons of it in it, and it's also good for brain health, but it cause you to excrete all of the glyphosate in your system over time because it has a stronger affinity to the cell receptors and the same receptors that glyphosate binds to. So if you notice, you have glycine, glyphosate, glycogen. These are all things with the same with a similar chemical makeup that allow them to bind to the same things. I'll skip this one. This is, NAD plus you may have heard of, NMN, a precursor to it. It's another one of the really good things that declines with age, but it's totally critical for cellular metabolism. And so if you're feeling like you don't have a great energy level, NAD plus is a great thing to supplement, or the NMN, because it just improves the entire system's ability to transact. So inflammation, there's a lot of confusion about what's inflammation, what's what's an anti-inflammatory versus antioxidant, why do they matter, free radicals and all this stuff. I just wanted to point out that I mentioned hormesis before. There's a lot of examples of hormesis. You do a small thing that would normally not be good for your body, but it causes a larger reaction that is positive. Smoking a cigarette, for example, not the best example here, but smoking a cigarette causes a huge spike in glutathione, which is your body's master antioxidant, which is an inflammation reducer. It is not a good trade-off because of all the other problems you get with a cigarette, but it's a good illustration of how that works. This is one that I'm really happy to talk about because it's so important. Chronic inflammation is not like regular inflammation. If you get a scratch on your arm or you get a cold or whatever, you're going to get inflammation somewhere. Chronic inflammation is something you want to avoid at all costs because it's going to kill you, and it's going to kill you through a whole lot of different mechanisms. Chronic inflammation is probably the number one cause of chronic inflammation is consuming too much sugar. And here's why. And by the way, it's the wellspring of so many chronic diseases, it's not even funny. And all your degenerative joint diseases, your neurological diseases, it can trigger autoimmune diseases. It's an awful condition to have. And so you want to know, you can get a test. They measure the C-reactive protein in your blood, and that'll give you some indication as to whether you have a high inflammatory in your system. But the main important thing to know is that you don't want chronic inflammation. Now, why it matters is huge. The number one problem when we talk about like heart disease and strokes and things like that, it's generally the lead up to that is atherosclerosis. Okay, that's the buildup of plaque in your arteries. But what no doctor has ever told me, it's like there's a very quick response. You come in and your cholesterol's high, and it's like, oh, we might have to talk about putting you on a statin. Instead of saying, let's look at what you're eating and let's get a scan to see if you have plaque in your arteries. The reason that's so important is that if you have inflammation, chronic inflammation, too much sugar, what's happening is you're getting micro tears in the endothelium of your arteries, and it happens at the turns. So as the blood pumps out of your heart, that first corner is where you get it the most, because the blood's hitting with force and it's pulsing out, and it's not a fixed pipe, right? It's flexing, and it's causing tears because the whole interior is inflamed, and it's breaking down the integrity of the lining. Now, what happens is cholesterol is sticky, and when you have a rough, injured surface, it sticks to it. Okay, so if you don't have chronic inflammation, cholesterol is a net benefit. Even high cholesterol is a net benefit. The longest living people, all-cause mortality, have high cholesterol, but they don't have chronic inflammation. And so they're not susceptible to developing atherosclerosis. But you have to first understand that you have to know, do I have a problem? And for that, you need a CT scan. They do what they call this calcium score. Okay, if your calcium score is very low and you're keeping your carbohydrate intake low, your cholesterol is not an issue. It's just not. It's a benefit. It's not an issue. It is a critical part of your immune system. It makes up the myelin lining that protects your nerve systems throughout your whole body. It makes up like 90% of your brain. It makes up your sex hormones. Like if you cut cholesterol down, depending on how low you take it, you're going to have other issues. You're going to have hormone issues. So just to illustrate this, I'll tell you a brief story. When I was 20, 21, 22, a good friend of mine was the manager at Gold's Gym in Venice. That gym is known for all the monsters, okay? All these giant bodybuilders. The gym in Venice, Gold's Gym. Okay, I went down, I stayed a weekend with him, and we worked out, and we saw all these bodybuilders and these pro wrestlers, and it was fun. We go to a cafe in the morning, and he says, on show days, this place is packed with bodybuilders. And he goes, they all order the same thing. They order buckwheat pancakes with extra syrup. I said, why? He says, because it brings the veins out. That didn't mean anything to me for a long time. And then at Rotary, we had a brain surgeon come in, and he was our speaker. And he was promoting a book called Bread is the Enemy of Your Brain. And he's explaining why it's so bad for you to eat a lot of sugar. And he says, it's totally inflaming your entire cardiovascular system. It's bringing the veins out. And they're swelling. They're swelling because they're so irritated. And that totally brought it full circle for me. I'm like, that makes so much sense. That's why these guys are eating buckwheat pancakes with extra syrup, to look more vascular. Well, what a lot of people don't tell you, or just don't know, we know about Alzheimer's. You don't know that that's basically type 3 diabetes. That's insulin resistance in your brain. And it's because you're eating too much sugar. So I'm not saying it's the only cause. I'm just saying it's insulin resistance in your brain, among other things. So you do well to reduce it and go to a more low carb type diet. It doesn't mean you have to go carnivore or anything, but low carb. Now, here's the second major influencer that has driven our disease epidemic. We know that too much sugar results in your body's inability to dispense with that sugar. And as a result, your pancreas is making more and more insulin until it can't keep up. And now it just can't do anything. So it just shuttles it away as fat, right? So we become obese. and we end up with all kinds of metabolic problems. Well, here's the other major contributor that is really relatively recently been elucidated, and that is the role of seed oils, vegetable oils. We've all heard about omega-3, omega-6, right? There's some ratio we're supposed to have, but we don't know what the hell our ratio is. How are we supposed to know our ratio, omega-3 to omega-6, right? We're told take fish oil or krill oil and all this. But what we're not told is that we are being overwhelmed with omega-6. Omega-6, the number one component in that is something called linoleic acid. It is highly inflammatory. It stores within virtually every tissue in your body. It lasts, its half-life is about 8 months, and it is inflammatory. It impedes your ability, the cellular metabolism as the level goes up, and it impairs your ability to break down glucose. So,
And it stays in your body 8 months?
in the white fat, it stays over 8 months. If it's, in other tissues, it may clear faster, but it's got a very long half-life. And it's in everything that they're putting in the processed foods. Everything. If you look all down the line, look at your ingredient list on next something that you're looking at the store. If you're seeing safflower oil, sunflower oil, soybean oil, corn oil, cottonseed, peanut oil, canola oil, don't eat it. It's too much. It's so high in this inflammatory substance that stores in your body that you're never going to eat enough omega-3 to counter it. So, and it's impeding your ability to break down glucose. So when people say, when somebody's overweight, they say, I have a really hard time losing weight. I've tried this, I've tried that. I didn't used to believe it. Now I understand. Yeah, it's way harder for you because we're all eating too much of this stuff and it's impeding our body's ability to do it. And it all happened because, we had the food industry was looking for ways to make stuff cheaper and all this. And so they came out with this thing. Oh, saturated fats are bad. Animal fats are bad. That's total nonsense. Animal fats are bad. Look at how our health has gone down so badly. We have epidemic after epidemic of chronic disease in this country, and it tracks really nicely to the introduction of seed oils. Our sugar consumption has gone up, but it hasn't gone up to explain this, but this does. When they started introducing this stuff and proliferated throughout the food supply, you started seeing all kinds, including colon cancer and other things in the digestive tract. So one of the problems with the linoleic acid in these seed oils is that they are polyunsaturated fatty acids, right? Not all PUFAs are terrible for you, but they are easily oxidized by heat and light. So I mentioned getting sunlight is so important. Well, what if you burn really easily? If you burn very easily, it's very likely you have too much linoleic acid in your body because it stores in your skin, among other areas, and it oxidizes immediately when you get in the sun, and you end up with damaged skin. So it's bad news. So just to illustrate how bad this is, the healthy range of ratio of the omega-3 to omega-6 to omega-3 is 4-to-1 or 1-to-4. The typical person is 20-to-1 in the wrong direction. So it's really bad news. You do much better to eliminate all the seed oils entirely and go with ghee, beef tallow, coconut oil, butter, avocado oil, or olive oil. And then there's one lesser known thing about olive oil. A lot of people don't understand, like olive oil, yes, it's better for cooking, it's good fat, but it's not good for high heat. So we've heard of trans fats, you're making trans fats if you take olive oil past the smoke point. So it's more of a finishing oil or low heat cooking only. You want to go with beef tallow, ghee, or coconut oil for the hot stuff. Okay, now we just go to lighthearted fun stuff. And we don't have too many slides left. Okay, cryotherapy or cold plunges. This is so good for you. It's not just good for you, it's good for your mental health. And here's why. It is, your body gets, remember we talked about hormesis, right? You sort of you do something that's, a little insulting to your body, getting that cold, your body goes, what? You start to shiver. And what it does in response is release a flood of what are called what they call them cold shock proteins. They're anti-inflammatory cytokine proteins that are released. And they really dramatically lower inflammation throughout your body. And it happens in a really quick wave. And the other thing that's great about it is you just feel good for hours. It just elevates your mood because it causes a release of endorphins. And so you just feel good. So it's hard to do.
And that's released out of your liver?
I think I don't know.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. But I do know that they say dopamine and endorphins are released and sustained over a period of time after you've done this. So it's a fun thing to do. You know, it's not easy.
You
but
ever do it?
Oh yeah, I do. I'm glad we got 3 days of rain, so my pool's going to go back into the 50s because I go with my wife and I go in. I finally talked her in. We go in for 3 or 4 minutes in the morning, and it's hard, but you know, if it's like 50, 55 degrees, you know, you get that shiver going and get out and feel good. So, yeah.
Just curious, because I actually practice that. I love a hot shower, but I always turn it to cold, and like the last 30 seconds to a minute, you know, in fact, I did it before I got here.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of the same? I mean, I know I wake up, like, you know, I'm in a hot shower, I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna get out of here. But then I do that and I'm dancing around like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. You know, I turn it off and I get out and I tend to be awake. Is there the same benefits from that little burst of going from the hot to the cold in the shower, or say something like that?
Yeah. So I don't know specifically the boundaries, but I've heard a pretty good conversation about it on Andrew Huberman's show. He's a neuroscientist, and he's talked about that. He says that the data suggests that you need it to be sustained. Once you're shivering, it's a good sign that this is happening. And he says, like, even getting into the plunge, getting into the water, you need to get your shoulders and a good part of your neck in there because of the vagus nerve or something. So.
So real fast, I was doing something with I had a secretary and we were trying to do a video and I was like tired and she's like, you want to try something? I'm like, yeah, let's try it. And she got a bowl of water and put a bunch of ice in it. She said, put your head in the ice.
Yeah.
And I did that. So it was like a shock. It was like, okay, I'm awake.
Yeah.
So it's similar to that, but it's something that's like a hack for a biohack.
It is. It is. As a matter of fact, so I heard Dave Asprey talk about specifically that. I haven't read anything about this. I just listened to a conversation about it. And he said, if you can put your as much of your face in there as possible and do that, he says, it's the vagus nerve runs down there. And I think that's one of the keys, right, to getting it, which is why you need to be up to here. And he says that initially you get a headache, right? But he says after a few times, then your body just adapts. You don't get the headaches anymore, but you still get this. You still get the benefits. So, yeah. Okay, so the other is the opposite. Okay, you expose yourself to too much heat, you get a very similar but actually better overall response. And this one, so the Nordic countries, it's very common to have saunas in your home. In like Finland and Norway, it's very common. There's been a lot of studies looking at the health of regular practitioners of sauna, and it's all good. So it's very similar. Your body produces a lot of these, what they call heat shock proteins, same thing, and super anti-inflammatory and everything, but it also increases your growth hormone production by about 400%, depending on your duration. And that is huge. If you're over 50, you're not getting much in the way of growth hormone anymore. But growth hormone is amazing on your body. It's the reason that young people are so resilient, right? They heal fast. They do everything. And so I'm a big fan of the heat, infrared saunas and everything. It's good, great for your skin. It's also, they've done analysis of the sweat, and you are sweating out a lot of nasty stuff. Your body holds on to all kinds of things. It gets stored, incorporated into the cells, And when you sweat, a lot of that stuff comes right out, heavy metals and various types of otherwise, toxic stuff. So it's great. It's good for collagen production, and of course, reduces your cortisol levels as well. Okay, I think there's only like 2 slides left.
So I want to throw something in on the sauna, because I have a sauna. So it does have a lot of physiological benefits.
Oh yeah.
But I gotta also, you can't neglect the fact that it's a willpower. It increases your willpower, because if you do it the right way, or at least what I've been experimenting with, you sit in there long enough, and then your body's saying, "Hey, it's hot. You need to get out." And then you have to have a conversation with yourself, and you're like, "Nope, I'm gonna sit right here, and I'm just gonna." And the longer that you're able to do that, like what you were referring to earlier, the longer you do something that you're not wanting to do, the bigger that willpower gets. And so there's definitely a mental issue that you're addressing and increasing. So I just think that that's another thing you should add to that slide, because the mental aspect for me is huge. I've benefited.
You're dead right. If you listen to, like, I'm a fan. I like to listen, not all of them, but like Joe Rogan, Jocko Willink, a lot of these guys and they're real proponents of doing hard things. And they talk about that when you do hard things, everything else seems easier, and it just strengthens, it's your mid-cingulate cortex, right? It's that part of your brain that you're building. It's like a muscle, you're building it up. Hydrogen water is really a phenomenal thing. If you get interested in hydrogen water, there's a website called, I think it's hydrogenstudies.com, I think. Hydrogen water, it has these amazing aspects of it, because when you think about, we are familiar with the term free radicals, right? So, I don't really know what that is. Well, it's usually a displaced molecule. It's usually oxygen, okay, that gets, and it's usually from an oxidative process. It's a breakdown of a cell. And so you get this oxygen molecule floating around, and it'll cause damage along the way, because it'll just try to bind to something else and create a chain reaction, disrupt that thing, and then disrupt that thing. And so that's when we talk about oxidative stress. That's too much free radical activity. It's usually spawned by inflammatory processes. Okay, well then you think, all right, well what could I combine with oxygen that would be beneficial? Hydrogen, H2O. Hydrogen is the smallest molecule there is. When you infuse water with hydrogen, you gotta, the impractical aspect of this is you gotta pound it. It dissipates immediately. It basically is, they have little microscopic bubbles, but they're working their way to the surface. So as soon as it's done, you gotta pound it. But that goes in your body. It will traverse through any barrier. It goes through the blood-brain barrier. It'll go through any tissue, and it just keeps going until it finds oxygen to bind. And now it's just made a pure water molecule and stopped the oxidative stress. Yes. It is absolutely just an amazing thing. The only thing the impractical aspect of it is that I have purchased a number of these hydrogen water bottles, and I haven't found a brand that I can rely on. Even the ones that are promoted, it's very frustrating to me. Like, some of them they make too big of bubbles. Others make the small bubbles, and it doesn't work for very long. They make units you can buy and install, your counter or under your counter and things like that, but then it's not portable. The nice thing about a hydrogen water bottle is you can take it anywhere, and you can, dose yourself whenever you want. Yeah. So, it's impractical, but it is amazing. And, you can get them for maybe 50, 60 bucks on Amazon, and just pour some filtered water in there, turn it on, takes a minute, and then just glug. So that's a great one. We talked about grounding already. I'll only talk about a couple of these. So so we talk about reducing inflammation being so important, right? Not after exercise. If you're not lifting weights or running or something like that, you don't want to immediately take an anti-inflammatory. That's the good inflammation. It's a part of your healing process. But you don't want chronic inflammation. We know that. There is an amazing. So there's one of the most interesting ones is carbon 60. That is the image on the left is the what they call a buckyball or it was developed by Buckminster Fullerene, and it's basically a soccer ball shaped 60 node molecule. Every one of those 60 nodes will bind with a reactive oxygen species. And so it's suspended in a pure olive oil. It's not cheap. It's like $80 a bottle, but it's like a tablespoon a day. It's usually a month, at least for me. And it's a great anti-inflammatory, especially for the digestive tract. But that's a really interesting one. It's not commonly, you can find it on Amazon and stuff. Several of the others here, glutathione, you can supplement glutathione, but the one below it, N-acetylcysteine, is the precursor to glutathione. It's so you can take it and it will elevate your glutathione level. Glutathione tends to be more expensive and more poorly absorbed. Carnosine is a great one as well. And then alpha lipoic acid, if you have high blood sugar, take alpha lipoic acid before bed every night, and that will help lower your blood sugar. PQQ is a pricey one, but it's also a great antioxidant. And then, turmeric. Turmeric's been used for hundreds of years in again, Ayurvedic medicine in Southeast Asia. You can take turmeric right from the spice cabinet, right, and mix it into maybe electrolytes or whatever beverage. And I don't love the taste of it, but because I've had issues in my stomach with the diverticulitis, I do that kind of stuff pretty religiously now. And then there's one, the active compound in turmeric that is anti-inflammatory is actually something called curcumin. And curcumin, they actually make a liposomal version, which is bound with fat, which is much better absorbed. So you can take that, and that would be more for the whole body, whereas turmeric's not going to leave the digestive tract. Red light therapy. This is, I'd say, relatively new, maybe the last 6-8 years. It's really good stuff, though. In your human wellness center, you guys have red light therapy? Oh, you do?
Oh, wow. Nice.
So red light therapy is fantastic. It penetrates very deeply. It's not just any red light. You can't just put a for Halloween light. But they're designed to penetrate very deeply into your tissue, and it stimulates the production of ATP. And again, so we talked about the bioenergy model, mitochondrial energy production. This stuff ramps it up. And so they've shown all kinds of benefits, clinically proven, including hair growth. And that's why you might have heard of Capulus, this cap that you can wear. And they're making face masks now for people that want to, improve the skin on their face. So it's good stuff. Okay, a couple of random things. This, I have personal experience with this. I love hiking. When you go hiking, if anybody's ever had toenail fungus, it's not the funnest topic to talk about, but that is difficult to get rid of, really difficult to get rid of. And the drugs that they would give you are incredibly toxic to your liver. So it's a big price to pay to poison your whole body in order to get rid of toe fungus, right? I had read that tea tree oil would work. I tried it. I did it for weeks. I didn't get anything. I tried oregano oil, and in 2 days, it completely, toenail, like underneath where it was brown, went white. I just kept doing it just to make sure it was gone, totally gone.
You took it or you applied
No,
it
sorry, good
directly
point.
to the thing?
I just rubbed it on my toenail. Now, oregano oil is rough stuff. It'll irritate your skin for a lot of people if you have sensitive skin. But I just rubbed it on my big toenail, and it totally killed it. And I can't even imagine going to a doctor and getting a drug for that.
I've had that. My dad had it. My son has it. And yeah, oh, we're gonna do a liver function test to give you. What?
Oregano oil. Get oregano oil or rub it on there.
My son actually just started taking the pills.
No, they haven't tried this. It'll be way faster.
The laser, like, he's tried everything.
Huh? Well, if you listen, I don't know about your kids.
You know,
My kids don't like to listen to me. Maybe yours don't listen to you, but yeah, I mean, buy them a bottle of oregano oil. There's activated charcoal. This is, less maybe practical, but the charcoal is something they'll give you at a poison center, and the reason that you give it to somebody, or the reason you would take it, is if you've eaten something that you think is a little sketchy. Maybe you're out of town, stop by somewhere, say, well, that smells a little fishy. I shouldn't have eaten that or whatever. If you've got it on hand, keep it in your purse or whatever, activated charcoal, you take it. It's amazing at binding to all kinds of things. If you take it with supplements, your supplements are neutered, but it binds with all kinds of things. It even kills parasites and things like that. So that could be good stuff. I think this is the last slide. This is mind-blowing. I talked to my eye doctor about this, and he had never heard of it, and it just underscored the whole point, the whole problem in our system. N-acetylene carnosine eye drops. N-acetyl carnosine eye drops. Okay, the brand name is CanC. I haven't found any other brand that specifically has this ingredient, but it literally prevents and dissolves cataracts, and there's data to prove it. You can look it up on PubMed. It will get rid of cataracts, and it will prevent the cause of cataracts, which is oxidation, just like most of our body. It's part of the decay process, right? So you can get CanC. I don't know what happened in the United States. I used to be able to get it here. Can't get it anymore. I have to buy it from Europe now. But, it's like $60 for this little eye drops. Yeah. Somebody didn't like them cutting in on their profits, I mentioned methylene blue. Methylene blue, there's a picture of it. This stuff, again, the first synthetic drug ever approved. It improves mitochondrial performance. It's great as a nootropic. If you're getting ready to do a presentation, you're doing something that you got to be sharp for, a test, something like that, methylene blue, 20 drops in a glass of water, drink it. You're good for about 45 minutes. That's it. So that's all I got.
I told you. Yeah, very in depth. Does anybody have any questions? That's
What can we find?
Tony.
hold on.
Oh.
Okay. Very, very insightful. I really appreciate you coming and sharing with us all this valuable information. Now, my age, I know that I could use, all the information that you gave, but I have so many questions that I wrote down here. But let's see. Okay. Okay. Oh my goodness.
I'm happy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Still.
You guys want the PowerPoint? Let me
Okay. No, I'll just touch on, one or two, like you were talking about the infrared and to get those, can you get them at the massage parlor, or can you go to a sauna, or where is that available?
Okay, so I had kind of tongue in cheek. It was a joke for my friend James, who owns Float State in Dos Lagos. They have saunas, but there are more. A lot of gyms are starting to offer them. I think that EOS gym over by the Amazon Fresh. I think I heard that they have saunas. You can buy them for home as well. They make small ones, big ones.
Yeah, because I and all of the one thing that's interesting, all of this stuff, because I wonder, my wife Peggy is on a health thing. She has a garden and she works on it. And she's on this natural,
Yeah.
whatever it is. And she's, I mean, it's like my soap. I can't even take a shower, because I used the wrong soap. It smells bad,
Yeah.
or it's not smell bad, but it smells.
Yeah.
It has a scent, and because it has a scent, it's not good. And,
Yeah.
and she, and so, she's gonna hate missing this information, but it would just probably wound her up. She probably would be one not sleeping tonight because she's gonna be looking into all of this. Okay, but I really, it was just so much. I wrote down. I said I'm gonna ask this, and then I got another question. I'm gonna ask that, but
Well, bring them
I'll
to
let them.
Rotary, and after Rotary, we'll talk.
Okay,
There you go.
we'll do.
Anybody else? Okay. Awesome. See you guys.
All right.
So this was, go ahead.
Red light there, like I have a red light mask. I do one or
Can you hear me?
more I'll just talk loud. I do one or more of just about everything that you have on there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm into it just like you are. But on the red light, so I have the red light mask. Actually, mine's got little probes on it that zap your face. It's a little bit much for me. But does that provide the same benefits as like in your photograph? If I had like full body red light, if I have that sitting on my face for 20 minutes, is that going to provide the same type of benefits, or is it really just localized to the face?
I don't know. I think when I looked at, I own a red light panel as well, but it's not one of the, quite frankly, it's not one of the good ones.
Right.
What I've noticed is the density of the lights, okay, how many like per square inch or whatever matters. And then the wavelength matters. There's particular ranges. And so usually they have two settings that control the depth. Most of the consumer products, like most things, they're not quite of the strength of the modalities that they'll put in a spa that, spend more money on.
Right.
But I don't know. I've never heard of the one you're talking about.
Yeah, I know my wife bought it and she never buys anything that's cheap. So I got it came in a big, beautiful box with gold trimming and everything on it. I just have to assume it's a good one, but she's like, here, I got this for you. What are you trying to say? But I use it. I lay in bed. I admit I use it. And so I'm 55, just like you.
Yeah.
And
I know, clock's ticking, man.
Well, this is a long presentation and it's very in depth, but that's why I wanted it. Do you have anything that you want to say, Jason,
definitely
before we
worthwhile.
put it to it?
No, I mean, all that information is great. I actually do have one question. I don't know if I saw it under, did you talk about caffeine at all on there?
Caffeine was in there under
Yeah.
nootropics.
So is it a positive? It's just
It's a
because,
net positive, yeah.
yeah, because I hear there's a lot of influencers touting their superpower mix
Yeah.
is nicotine, and coffee.
Yeah.
Coffee, nicotine gum, or nicotine patch, or whatever.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that's like, there's a whole bunch
Wakes
of
them
them.
up.
Yeah. And then there's, so the thing about caffeine, like I love a good Starbucks coffee, but it's intense. And I usually like more than one. I can't call it a cup, it's like that big, but I tend to go for a second. And then I get a little bit of a headache and I don't feel great. There's one thing you can add when you take caffeine to smooth it out if you like a strong cup of coffee, and that's L-theanine. And so that's in a dropper, and I just do a dropper of that. And I don't do it on like religiously because usually I don't get this effect. But if I'm drinking a real strong coffee, I'll just go grab the theanine and do it. And then it just totally, I don't know what it is. It's something about the GABA or whatever in your brain and smooths it out.
Interesting.
Have you ever focused on like cellular hydration? One of the practices that I did, I eliminated coffee, and I thought it was going to be a really big like, oh, holy shit, we get rid of coffee. And it was taught to me by a friend of mine who owns a health and wellness company called Energize Health. And when you wake up, you chug two 16-ounce bottles of water. And what it's doing is because we're dehydrated when we wake up in the morning, which has a lot to do with our fatigue. So we're forcing in 32 ounces of water into our body to instantly hydrate it.
Yeah.
And if you give your body enough time within about 10 minutes, and I found this to be true. I don't always do that because I do love a black cup of coffee. I have found that I have all the same energy as I would from a cup of coffee. You know, I went 6 months without it, and I woke up every single morning. I pounded it. I also use Celtic salt. So I'm, you know, I followed, you know, Dr. Barbara O'Neill. I'm sure you've probably seen.
I've tried some of her stuff, experiments.
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
not all successful, but
yeah, I've tried the oil pulling in my teeth and all that good stuff too. So
All
yeah,
right.
it was a great program. It filled in a lot of gaps for me that I had not realized or thought about. So thank you.
thanks.
So let's bring it to a close, and then if we have questions afterwards, you know, feel free to talk to Jeff. Obviously, he's an encyclopedia full of information. So.
Yeah, for sure.
And that being said, again, thank you guys for showing up, and cheers. See you later. Hey, and thanks, Jeff. Thanks.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Awesome.